Larry Klayman, special prosecutor with Larry Klayman. This is our daily podcast on events that have occurred in the last 24 hours. It now appears that the president will weather the impeachment and conviction push of the vile and rabid House managers run by Nancy Pelosi, that wicked witch of the left, eclipsing even the wicked witch Hillary Clinton in this regard. But I'll tell you something. There's something that's very interesting that's out there today, and I think you need to take note, because what's important about this podcast and what's important about my weekly radio show, Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, which is played, generally speaking, on Sunday of each week on about 50 stations nationwide, and you can find it podcast at freedomwatchusa.org, at radioamerica.com, at iTunes, at Spotify, and Patreon. And you can also find this podcast there as well, is that education is extremely important. And even though there are not going to be any witnesses, apparently, at the impeachment trial of President Donald J. Trump, even though he is likely to be acquitted this Saturday, we see a drumbeat that's continuing. We see a drumbeat, believe it or not, from Fox News, from portions of Fox News, whether it's Chris Wallace, the son of Mike Wallace, a two-bit leftist hack, that Lachlan Murdoch, the now CEO in effect, the owner of Fox News, continues to promote. We see it from Judge Napolitano, Andrew Napolitano, so-called Judge Napolitano. He hasn't been a judge for many, many years, and I'm not sure what kind of a judge he was, even when he sat on the New Jersey State Court. Juan Williams, Arthel Neville, and even sarcasm and things like that from Martha McCullum and others at Fox News. And you see, there is an effort underway to undermine this president, whether or not he survives impeachment. These leftists would like to see him lose, and Fox has become two-faced even more than it ever was. It's frankly a network that you should just simply turn off. I cannot stand dishonesty, and if you get my book, Horrors, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment, I had problems with Fox all the way back into the late 1990s, early 2000s, at Judicial Watch, that I conceived of, founded, and ran. They were not honest. They would bring my guests on, my clients, without even telling me. They would, in effect, depose them on TV, particularly Sean Hannity. Sometimes I even went on with them, and they cut my feed, so I couldn't say anything. And while ideologically I appeared to be more similar to Fox than I did, obviously, MSNBC or CNN, and those networks weren't as bad as they are today, I always found Fox to be the most dishonest cable network. And I wrote about that in my book, Horrors, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment. I also had difficulty with Roger Ailes, who defamed one of my clients, Dolly Kyle Browning. And from that point forward, I was blacklisted by Fox when I stood up for her and advised Roger Ailes that he had to correct it, which he never did, or he may be legally liable. But that notwithstanding, is that these efforts from the right, so-called right, but they're not, you see, they're never Trumpers. They are closet leftists to undermine the President of the United States, could leave him vulnerable in a general election. Now, I don't tell people who to vote for as head of Freedom Watch. Personally, I can endorse people. But I'll tell you something. Coming behind the president right now is Bernie Sanders. He's now apparently even eclipsed the senile and frankly corrupt Joe Biden as the number one Democrat candidate. Sanders, I think, is the most despicable of all the Democratic candidates. Number one, Sanders is a self-hating Jew. And his father changed his name from his Jewish name. They've tried to hide that their entire life. People that don't stand up for their heritage and are proud of their heritage, I don't trust, number one. But number two, Sanders is a communist. He's not a socialist. He's a communist. Communists do exist in our society today. If McCarthy was alive right now, he'd have a field day with what's out there. And this guy not only is a communist, but he was endorsed by radical Muslims in the Congress, whether it's Ilham Omar or Rashida Tlaib, and vehement anti-Semites who support Hamas and Hezbollah, like Linda Sarsour, that are out there. And this guy will completely destroy not just our economy, but the fabric of our social and cultural life. And that is why what Fox is doing, undermining the president with people like Chris Wallace, with people like so-called Judge Andrew Napolitano, Juan Williams, Arthur Neville, Martha McCallum, and others, is so, frankly, dangerous. And it's why you need to turn to other conservative networks, people that are really conservative. Look at the Sinclair stations. They own 178 stations throughout the country. They own the sports networks, many of them as well. I wouldn't even turn on Newsmax, frankly. Newsmax tries to play both sides of the street as well. And frankly, you look at the picture, you can't even see what's on it. That's how bad it is. And I've been censored on Newsmax. I used to write a blog there. Anything that's strong, they censor. They won't publish. That's why I publish on WorldNet Daily. But Radio America really stands out because they let me say what needs to be said. They don't censor what's being said. And that's why I want you to share this podcast each day with your friends, colleagues, fellow patriots, and also our radio show each week, Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. And again, you can find it not just at freedomwatchusa.org, but you can find it also on iTunes, Spotify, Patreon, Facebook, and other places. And that's why it's so important, because as I've said many times, it was educating the colonialists, the people that lived in the colonies, that united our country to become a free republic. And that's what we need to do today, because there are many treacherous forces of the left, two-faced entities on the right, and we need to support this president, because if he goes down, we all go down with him. That's my message for today. I hope you'll listen to my weekly radio show as well, that you can find in the same places. And God bless you, God bless your family, God bless America, and God save America. I'll be back on Monday with another podcast, bringing us all up to date on what's going on in our beloved country. Thank you for listening to me.